Hi, welcome back to Storytime with Dad Booker. Today we're going to continue on and finish off Sheriff in a Small Town. So we're at the exciting conclusion. Rocky was visiting Tom Horton, who had decided to move from town out into the country. Tom had recently purchased a farm on the outskirts of Rocky's jurisdiction. The fact that he, of all the folks in town, had decided on suddenly turning farmer was something he just couldn't fathom. Tom was a bit of a mystery anyways. He lived in town all his life and seemed to have enough money without ever having to work a day in his life. He was in his 60s now, and while still in excellent health, it seemed a bit old to take up a trade. Rocky had fought against going up to see Tom, but after a month his curiosity had gotten the better of him. He had heard folks talking about all the big equipment Tom had ordered and delivered. Apparently he was going to make all out to make a success of it. Rocky figured he'd probably start well with corn, always a readily saleable crop and not too hard for a first-time farmer. Rocky pulled into the drive and shut off the truck. From the front, it didn't seem any different. The field lay unplowed and looked as if it hadn't been touched in years. In fact, it was returning to prairie. From the back of the house came the sounds of some large machine. Rocky sauntered around the edge and saw Tom working with a scoop at the large lake on the property. Looked as if he was making it even larger or squaring it off. Mounds of dirt and debris were piled on either side of the roaring machine. For a man who supposedly had never worked, he handled the scoop deftly. A load from the lake was placed on the top of the pile and water ran down, removing some of the outer layers of dirt. White patches were exposed against the dirt. As Rocky approached, the patches took on the familiar shapes of bones. Approaching, he noticed that some of the bones had to be visible to Tom. Apparently, not giving them much thought, though. The fact made Rocky suddenly more cautious. He called for backup. Unholstering his sidearm, he allowed Tom to continue while he skillfully maneuvered to stay out of the line of sight of the mirrors. Tom finished his digging from his present location and moved to a site further up the bank. Talbot's arrival was heralded by blaring sirens approaching from the rear of the home. The wailing tones rose over the sound of the digger's engine. Tom spun in his seat with a revolver coming up. The sight of Rocky, with his gun already drawn and aimed, made him lower the gun and drop off the digger. One thing he had not done was to turn off the engine. As it let down, the backhoe's brake released and the machine slowly drove into the lake. Rocky approached cautiously. The fact that Tom's first instinct had been to pull a gun wasn't comforting. He thought that he would even have one on the machine with him. Tom was holding out his hands and trying to be reassuring. "Sheriff, we need to talk before you do anything else." Tom handed over his gun and they walked to the picnic table. Talbot sat down while Rocky decided to stand. He figured it might be good to stay mobile while they talked. "Sheriff, Deputy, I know you got to take me in on account of what you've seen, but before we get into town, I want to tell my side." Rocky stationed himself against a tree so he could overlook Tom and the house from both angles. With Talbot facing the other way, Rocky felt sure she was secure from surprises. "Sheriff, I don't know if anything Morgan ever told you about me." He paused as he waited to hear what Rocky knew. "Well, he hasn't said a word to me about you. The only thing I know is you kept yourself to yourself and seem to have enough money to live on without ever having to work." Tom nodded. "Oh, I work all right, but it isn't the kind of work that shows. Work back when things around here were pretty different." "You know how Morgan cleaned up the town against the mob?" Rocky nodded. "Well, I was part of the mob at that time." Rocky's brow shot up. "Yeah, it's true. My job was to take care of the stiffs. I'd bring them out here and drop them in the lake. I was the undertaker for the mob. For a while, business was brisk, and I made a couple hundred disposing of each body. I wasn't a made man, but an associate, pretty low in the ranks, but it paid well. Recently, I was contacted by someone I hadn't heard from in a long time. They gave me the money to buy business wants to build out here, and if they had dug that up," he hitched a thumb back to the lake, "swarm with cops, FBI, and more. My job was to do some spring cleaning location or cement over the lake and put a barn over it. In the end, I figured on putting the barn over it and digging out a new lake. I had to even it out so I'd know how much cement I needed. It's taken me a while, and I was about to put everything back by the end of the week and begin filling it. Talbot's face turned stern at the thought of all those bodies being callously out. Thompson Talbot's face changed. Deputy, I never killed anyone and never knew much. I'm filling you in because when you arrest me, and I must ask you to trust me on this, word's going to go up real quick, and you guys are going to be in danger. I got nothing against either of you, and I don't want to harm. Rocky suddenly realized what he was letting himself in for if he took Tom in. The look on his face was almost a challenge to anyone. The two lawmen knew what they had to do. As soon as Rocky and Talbot transferred Tom to the state, they made arrangements to get their family. Agnes and Michaela took a train to Wisconsin, and it's a safe distance. Agnes even took a small derringer she had dredged up from the fishing lake and had brought some shells. From the station, they sent a wire stating that when they had left and another when they arrived. No further communication until everything was safe. Sorry, excuse me, I need to drink. It didn't take long. It didn't take. You ever have one of those days? I'm sorry. It didn't take long for word to get around. Rocky was visited by a man who looked like a movie version of a mobster. Sheriff, I don't know what your intentions are since you haven't made a call to the FBI and nothing at the farms would touch. Shows you're smart. I figure you've been waiting to see what our next move will be. Well, I'm here to have a sit down with you. Rocky poured out a cup of coffee for each of them and sat back. He wasn't as relaxed as he looked and had a gun in easy reach. That didn't show. He didn't say anything and let the silence build. The man the mom had sent smiled. Yep, you're plenty smart, so I'll say what I came to say, then leave. You aren't foolish enough to try and pinch me. Besides, you got nothing to hold me on anyways. Here's a message. Leave things alone. Tom will be out by Friday. He's going back to the farm to finish what he was ordered to start. You see what I'm saying here? What he was ordered to start. That means he was told to do it from up top. The man rose and put his hat on low on his brow. This is the only warning you're going to get. Leave things be and you're golden. Make a fuss, you won't be around for the finish. That's not a threat, just a statement of fact. He left just as Talbot entered the courthouse. Looking the man over as he left, Talbot muttered, I take it he didn't come in to sell you a vacuum. The sound of the back door of the courthouse being flung on its hinges made the two men jump and reach for their guns. Just me, fellows, coming in. The sound of Morgan's voice relaxed them. They holstered their weapons. Well, gentlemen, seems you've gotten yourselves in deep. I bet you figured this was coming when you took in Tom. I looked the place over, and I bet that what's been dug up is only a little of what lies underneath. I checked your house at 2, and I bet it was off. Of course, I wouldn't expect anything else from you both. That means to me you're ready to take us all the way. Rocky and Talbot nodded. Morgan did as well. The three lawmen understood a storm was brewing, and only time would tell if they would weather it safely. Rocky picked up the phone and contacted the FBI. With that phone call, he had set in motion a hellstorm from which there was no backing down. Morgan, Talbot, and Rocky all moved into Rocky's old home for the duration. With the FBI on the way to begin excavation and processing of the remains, it was only a matter of time before the mob came to town. Morgan was out and about doing something in secret that he wasn't allowing Rocky or Talbot to be privy to. Rocky and Talbot were making their own plans and keeping track as newcomers arrived almost daily. The YMCA filled with outsiders. Rooms that had been occupied were suddenly vacant to be filled with the next arrivals. On the outskirts of town, roads began to be blocked. The FBI hadn't sent more than about 10 people. They were trapped at the farm. Folks in town understood a little of what was happening, just not why. For many of the older residents, it was familiar enough to put two and two together. Morgan was not very communicative as to what he was doing, and it was starting to irritate Rocky. He knew whatever it was somebody dealing with what was happening. Unfortunately, without understanding what Morgan was planning, it was hindering Rocky and Talbot's ability to plan. Rocky cornered Morgan the next time he came in to eat. "Dad, I know you're doing something to help our situation, but don't you think it'd be better to let us in on it?" Morgan shook his head. "Sorry, son, but what I'm doing has to be kept mum. One word gets out and we're all screwed." Talbot continued to eat as if nothing was wrong. In fact, throughout the whole event, he had remained impassive. Knowing him the way Rocky did, it seemed very unusual. Seeing the quizzical look on Rocky's face, he explained, "Rock, I trust your father-in-law and know he's doing everything we can, and we're doing everything we can to get ready. Whatever happens, our families are safe and taken care of. Can't ask for more than that." Rock finished eating and cleaned up. He tensed when he saw a vague outline in the corner of the forested area of his backyard. A short, low whistle, and Talbot came stealthily. "I think there's another on the opposite corner. We might want to head to the courthouse." Rocky nodded and explained what they saw to Morgan. They went to the courthouse to wait on developments. Morgan sensed the time for action was pretty close at hand. At the courthouse, they began the process of barricading the place and gathering weapons. Each man knew that whatever guns and ammo they had was not going to find out that the insides were gone. The phone as well was inoperative. Rocky cursed himself for a fool for not having someone here at all times. Now they were really isolated with no hope of assistance. Morton was sitting behind the desk polishing his badge. Walking firmly to the back office, he reached into a box that had been stored on a shelf. From inside, he brought out his old uniform. Thankful it still fit, he checked himself in the mirror, put the badge over the pocket. Rocky and Talbot were watching events outside. Lone cars were driving by, disgorging men who lined the streets. The townsfolk were peering out nervously from behind closed windows and locked doors. Whatever was going to happen soon. Folks in town knew that Sheriff Morgan, Sheriff Steckler, and Deputy Talbot were in for a fight for their lives. Okay, last one. Morgan took Talbot's place at the window. From his shirt pocket, he brought out a small mirror that he was busy aiming at somewhere. Seeming pleased when a bright light shone on his face, he relaxed and poured himself a cup of coffee. "Well, we better get in position. Won't be long now." For someone whose life was hanging up from a thread, Morgan seemed completely at his ease. Rocky couldn't decide if it was fatalistic courage or something else connected with his surreptitious. But he tried to energize himself with the same calmness. Talbot was stationed next to Morgan, aiming down Main Street. Morgan was aiming straight ahead and Rocky up the street. "The hell are they waiting for?" Talbot whispered. Morgan patted him on the back. "They're trying to make us nervous. Just relax. Time's coming." The time arrived as a barrage of bullets were fired at the courthouse. The sound was deafening as the lawmen returned fire. Glass shattered and the thick oak doors shook under a fusillade of rounds. Ignoring the continual bombardment, the men inside the courthouse kept up a steady rate of fire. Outside, the men who fell were replaced as more mobsters took their place. Rocky suddenly called for firing to stop. "Dad, I swear that sounds twice as loud, but I don't see any more mobsters firing." Morgan grinned. "It's cavalry." Rocky saw that there were flashes on the tops of buildings all down the main street aiming down on the gangsters. Trucks were heading in from out of town, bringing more people who boxed in the mobsters and fired from the protection of thick doors and the truck's bodywork. The mobsters fired back on all sides, but had committed a critical error. working on boxing in the helpless lawmen, they hadn't reckoned on the townsfolk coming to aid their sheriffs and deputy. Many of these men were older, who in their youth had made up Morgan's marauders. These were the men who had helped to clear out the monsters years ago. Each man was a sharpshooter who had been handpicked by Morgan and trained in mob warfare. From the looks of things, they had kept their skills sharp. Of the 50 or so monsters that had been sent to town, none would live to tell the tale. This was what Morgan had been doing. He had recruited his old team and deputized them. The FBI arrived at the end and would perform a cleanup while Rocky, Talbot, Morgan, and his team reveled in having once more secured the safety of their town. A month later, the town held a festival honoring the courage and daring of their lawmen, past and present, and those brave men who answered Morgan's summons. On stage, men and their families proudly received the accolades that they had earned. The rest of the day and well into the night was held in celebration, dancing and feasting. So the town's buildings might need cementing, but the people of that town were the same as they always were, ready to do what's right and always there for each other. Together, with their faithful sheriff and deputy, their strength was indomitable. So that's it. That's Sheriff in a Small Town. Get your copy if you want. They're on Amazon and books to read and all sorts of places, pretty much anywhere. Hell, you can even get it at Walmart if you order online. So please get your copy. I look forward to seeing you when the next book we read is either going to be a series of shorts from, which one is it? From A Glimpse of My Shorts, or Another Glimpse, or we'll be doing World Mind, which is one of my latest novels out. So that's it for today. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you next time. Be good and be good to yourself. Bye.